Alright, Steve, let's take a peek at you here from the front view first. Let's get you next to Tiger and check your setup. You're hitting a 6 iron, Tiger's hitting a 6 for 5 here in the left-hand screen. Let's check your angles here. Look pretty solid there next to Tiger. Your ball's probably a little tiny bit more centered than Tiger. No harm there, no worries at all. Your spine angle still shows me that your tilt is slightly behind the ball there with your spine. Tiger's spine angle is very gentle as well. Your shoulder tilt looks very similar to Tiger, maybe a little tiny bit less shoulder tilt than Tiger. Tiger's about between 12 and 14, and you're in that green zone at 15. So I'd say you're on the money there with the shoulder tilt. Grip looks good as well. You really got your right knee pinched in beautifully here. I'm digging that. That looks awesome. Top of the backswing, let's check your numbers. Sweet. 82 degrees of shoulder turn and 23 degrees of hip turn. The only reason why the hip turns are red numbers is because the computer's not used to seeing that small an amount of hip turn off the ball. Tiger actually makes a little bit bigger hip turn, and if your hip turn got to 33 or 43, your shoulder turn would get up in the 90s, which really doesn't concern me. You're in your 6 iron how far?
About 185.
Perfect. So we don't need to hit any further, and we need to make we need to make your backswing as compact as possible so we can be more accurate and keep that nice tight draw. So you've got almost 60 degrees of separation X factor here at the top of the backswing. The tour average is 41 degrees of X factor, so you're well above the tour average, and your extension, the width at the top here, is money. Love that width at the top. I think what you've been working on and what we've been looking at for the last almost 18 months now, Stephen, is the fact that as good as you can coil and as actively as you can uncoil, your arms really never got back in front of you at the right moment in time. You're always battling a little bit with your inline condition through impact, and we can see you and Tiger now are very much synced up here at impact with that inline condition just beyond impact. Tiger here just before impact is looking extraordinarily solid here. Motion here at impact, all good green numbers. 50 degrees open with your shoulders, 48 degrees open with your hips. So we took this awesome coil at the top of the backswing with almost 60 degrees of X factor, and we now synced up the moving parts at impact so that you're in sync with Tiger. Tiger's 50 and 45, you're 50 and 48. So we want those numbers to be within 3, 4 degrees, 5 degrees of each other. Just stop your shoulders here a little tiny bit in extension position, and you can see how you're in a little bit of a bind for space, not quite as wide as Tiger here in that extension position. We know you're in position to extend out to the target, but things got a little sticky here going out to the curtain. But a beautiful post-up move. I want to make sure that we can release the club and not have to put any extra strain on our shoulders to get out there into the extension position. I love that. I love seeing that left arm swing all the way to the finish. Love seeing that left arm swing all the way to the finish. Support the right arm across your chest. Big time balance there. I love that move. What do you see her at address from the side view? Any major differences between you and Tiger?
Not really.
Okay. I'd say two small things. Both you might have a little more arch in your back. I see a little more arch in your back here to get that nice, tall, erect posture. Make sure we don't put too much pressure on that spine by doing that. We don't want to arch the back as much as we want to just keep the spine straight here at address, and that's kind of expanded your hip head number a little bit. It's a good thing, not a bad thing. But we don't want to put strain on the back so we injure it down the road. So we want to make sure the lower back is, generally pretty straight into the hips, so we can actually soften the hip bend slightly. And knee flex looks great, chin is up, chest is tall. That does look identical to Tiger. And your primary swing plane line, the line going through your club shaft, hits you right on the money in your belt buckle. Looking at you from the side view, we want to make sure that you're not thrusting too early. We talked about your footwork, making sure you don't get out ahead of the shot with your footwork. That's one thing Tiger's worked really hard on with Hank Haney, is not ripping his hips open too soon, staying grounded a bit longer so his arms can sync up to his body, and of course shortening his backswing and keeping it on plane. I think one thing that Haney's done with Tiger that I'm doing with you, Steve, is that he's kind of unified his planes. He's not a classic two-planer the way he was when he was your age. He's definitely kept the club moving for a longer period of time up the primary swing plane line. And that's helped him just to be more consistent. Center field looks real solid. We've got our arms hanging beautifully from our shoulders. Good space from the ball. You're a breath further away from the ball than Tiger. That doesn't trouble me at all. You're not reaching. You're in good shape. Super job here with the takeaway. My camera jiggles a little bit here behind Tiger. He's not quite this far above this blue line in reality. The camera jiggled a little bit from where they were filming him behind the range. But nice job here off the ball with your takeaway. You know how beautiful wide your takeaway is. You're a little bit under the plane. No worries there. It's not out of bounds. Tiger's a little bit above the plane. Good job there. All arms and hands working together with the trunk. What I'd like to see you do at this point in the swing, by the time your hands get in the center of your chest, they don't really make it to the center of your chest, do they? They kind of work down off your abdomen here, a little bit lower than Tiger. And then the shaft plane line, the club kind of loses its connection to the plane briefly. But I want to unify this. I want to see, the shaft be, nearly parallel to those two lines as the club gets in the center of your chest. You've got to lay a little flatter, and then you recover from the top of the backswing. I love where you're at. You haven't dipped your head out of the circle. You and Tiger are still in the circle. You're still hugging that butt plane line, keeping your tail back and your hip flex maintained. Great job there. And no daylight between the knees, so I'm really pleased with the load. Good. So tell me what you've been working on.
Making sure that I come under the plane line, the same thing.
Yeah, this yellow line, I call it the drop zone line. Dropping the club inside in this trough, anywhere inside this trough, makes for a really consistent, obviously, angle of attack and a consistent divot pattern. So you want to make sure you're in that zone when you come into delivery position. Very good, very nice. We see you dropping that club right in the slot, feeling really comfortable with the motion of your body, driving toward the target first with your hips. You're not jumping up on your toes here. Super job with the club faces. Club faces in the exact same neighborhood as Tiger. Very, very pure. The only thing I see you do that might be a little bit cautious is fire your arms with the ball with all the freedom in the world, but then kind of your trunk stops, but somewhere between here and the target, your trunk slows down a little bit and let your arms kind of catch up and go past you. See if you can. We work on that today a little bit. See if you can tell me what you're feeling in that range. If you feel stuck, if you feel a little bit cramped coming through the ball, because right here you don't look cramped at all. Very nice. We want to make sure that the club head doesn't get too far inside the handle before it gets out to the target. That looks real solid there. You and Tiger in very similar positions. Big time tilt of the shoulders. Big time rotation down the target line. So I like this. This reminds me of Jeff Ogilvy. You see Ogilvy win this week in Hawaii?
Yeah.
He stays here a lot longer than even Tiger does. I think obviously his flexibility is a tribute to that, but he really obviously uncoils. But he doesn't lose as much shoulder tilt at the finish as Tiger does. The tour average for shoulder tilt is quite modest at the finish, but the more flexible athlete can stay there and stay in that tilted zone a little bit longer. That looks really helpful. And you see how Ogilvy knew your body's match at the finish. I like that. Only the most flexible athletes can do that.